we'll have Michelle, founder of Society of Heart's Delight, the host of the event, to give us an introduction and opening.
Oh my God, so happy to see so many like old friends and some new faces. I believe by the end of our this gathering, definitely we are going to know more about each other and feel greater sense of community. And my name is Michelle Zhang. We founded Society of Heart's Delight, 愚园社, 3 years ago, right before the pandemic hit. At that time, there was a lot of so much uncertainty, but we have not only survived, we are like increasing our impact in our local community, and we also have gained a lot of enthusiasm from our local diverse communities. And I'm going to share a little good news with you guys. We haven't shared with people outside of our community yet, and we just awarded our very first federal grants from the Santa Clara County. And I believe there are more like funding, more good news about funding is coming. And thanks to Casey for helping us to secure this fund.
I think it's all the heavy lifting. I just have to find the fiscal sponsorship.
Yes. And next, I'm going to talk about Eva. My dear friend Eva, we are so lucky to have her on our core team. She's like everywhere. She knows everything. Okay, just name it. Science, journalism, society, social innovation, food, climate, and even vegetable meat. So I'm very excited. We're very excited to have our Eva to take us for this very special journey this afternoon. Yeah,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy. This is a delight. We have our Vice Mayor of the City of San Jose, Rosemary Kamei, who has joined us. And it wasn't clear until the last minute if you could make it. She was here yesterday for a wonderful event with a bunch of people. So now you can get to know our community and some of the stuff that we do here. As Michelle mentioned, this is a historic building, and it's on the Historic Registry in the City of San Jose, built in 1919. And the original owner was an agricultural pioneer and was responsible for bringing cherries to the Santa Clara Valley. And before Silicon Valley, this area was called the Valley of Heart's Delight, which was very kind of romantic and poetic, but it was also kind of exclusive. It had a lot of white ladies with parasols, and it was kind of like upper class kind of feeling. And so the name Society of Heart's Delight is kind of a spin-off of this historic name of our region, where we envision what would it look like to broaden this Valley of Heart's Delight and our connection to the land and our connection to the local history, to include all of the beautiful immigrants and the people who have contributed. It's kind of a little bit of a story about whose history gets told and who has the power to tell those stories. And a lot of the original Chinese immigrants, many of them were agricultural workers themselves and contributed so much to the Valley of Heart's Delight, and yet we don't hear enough about that, and other groups as well. So as you know, the Society of Heart's Delight is kind of, we envision it as a space. Mostly our members are Chinese immigrants who moved to the US as adults. As many of you know, I moved to China as an adult. I lived there for almost 7 years, so I speak Mandarin Chinese. And I know what it feels like, to be somewhere and to want to understand the local life, local culture, and to connect more meaningfully. And so now I find myself kind of on the flip side of that, and how can we be a bridge? How can we connect on a more meaningful level? So that's what we're about. And Michelle, this is Michelle's baby. I'm more on the back end at this point. So welcome. I really hope that you all relax, make this space your space. The bathroom, just so you all know, is after this food. If you turn right down the hall, it's down there, and just totally relax
This is
and enjoy.
Wow, world host.
Very exciting information about our city of San Jose. So, Rosemary Kamei is our very first. You are half Chinese, right?
Oh.
So we are the first time we have Chinese, council, elected official
Some
on our council.
representation.
Yeah. So, our vice mayor, we love for you to come up to say a few words.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Because
We're just improvising. So.
and many groups are competing for vice mayor this afternoon. Okay,
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you, Pat. One of the things that happened, I am not the first Chinese person. Kenson Chu was the first Chinese. We also have had other Asians. Madison Nguyen was the first Asian woman. I'm the second one, right? But I'm the first Chinese. So my father came from China, and this was a very, very long time ago. This was when the Caribbean was open and met my mother. He happened to speak Spanish. And so my mother spoke no English and no Chinese. So we spoke Spanish at home. So Spanish is my first language. I am fluent in Spanish. I have tried to learn Chinese, Mandarin.
We're gonna work on
and I took it in college and did intensive courses. My daughter, who is also a council member in the city of Mountain View, she took Chinese from kindergarten, right? And so she's very much more fluent in languages. She also speaks Spanish and she speaks Japanese, lived in Japan for 2 years and is fluent in Japanese. But here in San Jose, almost 40% of our population is Asian. And until this election cycle, there is no Asians on the city council.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that motivated me to run. I think that representation is important, and even in gender, there are only 3 women out of 11, including the mayor. It's mainly men. So I think that for me, it's very personal. It's important, and I am delighted to meet you here today and get to know you and be able to be part of community. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for
so
the
much.
invitation.
And I want to add that she overwhelmingly won. So just so for people who are learning about voting in the primary, if you get over 50% of the vote, you're done. You don't have to compete in the general election. And oftentimes that happens for incumbents, for somebody that's already been elected. And this was a new position, a new seat that you were running for, and you just did it. You knocked it out in the primary, and you didn't have to do it in the general. And I was so happy for you. So
Yeah. I won by 65%.
that's amazing. Welcome. Okay, great.
Thank you so much. And part of the things that draw me to the Society of Hearts Light is that the sense of civil education. Because think about where we come from, because I study civil society. Back in China, it's very small because we have very strong government. So the sense of civil action, civil society, civil movement, it's almost non-existent. So we almost have to educate ourselves as we come to this country. And if we don't educate ourselves, we can't truly integrate into this society. So I think that's what I really appreciate what they do. And I hope to host more events just for people to have fun, but also get educated and learn something and take something away from each other. Because we also have things to offer, like our Asian wisdom, like in eating or other things, right? How to live our life holistically. So that's truly wonderful to have everybody. So I think the event today will go through a few sections, if you will. I try to be organic, but I think we'll do self-introduction. But there is rule, and we want to keep the time. So self-introduction, and we'll talk about Kim's book. We'll have I'll interview her a few questions. She has deep connection with California and the land here, so we want to hear about that. And then we'll talk about how caring for our mind to our food, and take that beyond our play to the broader society, how we do that and why that matters. In a few, we have some fun exercise as well. So first we want to do self-introduction if everybody's pretty much here. The rule is, around the table, one, your name, affiliation, quickly, and then tell us what do you think your grandpa's favorite food is. Keep it under 1 minute. Who wants to start? Okay, we can. Kim, you want to start?
Sure,
Yeah.
I can start. Thank you, Eva, for having me here. My name is Kim Nicholas. I'm a professor of sustainability science at Lund University in Sweden. Currently, I'm visiting at Stanford University for 2 more days. I would say my grandpa's favorite food was the broad-breasted Nicholas white turkey, which he bred, and which I think we'll talk more about, which created many problems for the food system that I'm now trying to undo. Over to Vance.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Vance Wagner. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Energy Foundation China, but more importantly, I'm Eva's husband. So my great-grandfather was a butcher. And I would say, I don't know what his favorite cut of meat was, but I think about that often because we don't eat very much meat, but when I do, I have no idea. Like if you handed me a side of beef, I would have not the faintest idea where to start in terms of carving it up. So I think about that from the sense of us being disconnected from food systems, whereas not too distant in my past, they were very hands-on connected.
My dad cut off the head of a chicken. Growing up, I see that. So that's very different. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Coco and I'm a startup founder. My startup is called OpenR.ai. It's a generative AI startup. And I'm from Hangzhou and I got invited by Eva from an AAPI group. She posted the topic there and I thought, I've always been interested in sustainability and food. So I'm very happy to be here. And as for my grandpa's favorite food, I honestly don't have any idea, but I think we all really like bok choy, like my family, and I think bok choy is something that I think a lot of Chinese eat, but not many people here in America actually eat. I would like to see more people eat bok choy.
Hi, I'm Sway. Actually, I was sitting back chair right next to you. It was in my chicken soup. I am actually neighbors of Michelle and Pat. I live 2 doors down. And I founded Forest and Flower, which is a earth and community focused kitchen. I started the business right in my home kitchen here in 2019, and last October we just opened a cafe in Fremont, which gave us the opportunity to really dig into California food or local Bay Area food, because we really do know the farmers who grow our food, and we try to source and purvey our food products, ingredients from them. My grandfather's favorite food is milkfish porridge. The funny thing is that when I was growing up, I never communicated with him because he grew up during the Japanese occupation in Taiwan. And so he spoke Taiwanese and Japanese, and I can barely speak Taiwanese. But I always felt this closeness to him. And I remember we would always go to the market and get milkfish and make porridge for him. He was a farmer. I remember vividly once we drove a truck into his field, just plotted it because we were maybe 10 years old. So anyways, very nice to be here.
And thank you, Sway, for bringing from Forest and Flower. She brought the muffins, so I hope that you all have a chance to taste your lovely products. So.
Rosemary Kamei, City of San Jose. So I already talked a little bit about myself, but I wanna say, gosh, thinking, I'm not sure, but rice plays a very important part in my life, right? And both on the Latino side as well as the Asian side, rice is like, you know, the center, right? So so I would have to say, you know, sort of guessing it would be rice.
Thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Casey Hill. I'm the Executive Director of Vegilution. We're a nonprofit based here in San Jose, specifically in East San Jose, focused on food sovereignty, community engagement, environmental education. We run as part of our work, we run a 6-acre community farm inside Emma Prush Farm Park at Story and King, or if you're up on the highway, it's 101 and 280. And let's see, I grew up in Texas, in Austin, Texas. I'm the oldest of all the cousins, and so I would be assigned to sit with my grandfather when he was alive until he was finished eating. And so I know very well what he loved, and you won't be surprised, since it was Texas, that barbecue. Barbecue is way up there on the list. Thank you for including me. It's so nice to be here with all of you today.
Hi, so I'm Bill Meyer. I advise food system innovations, and I also am running a startup developing a device that helps people do breath practices. So in terms of what I'm thinking, so I have a grandfather that immigrated from Russia, and I'm going to guess it was kasha, which is buckwheat groats, just because that just seemed to be something that was around the family a lot.
And now let's turn to Kim, who is, there's a long bio I'm gonna read. No, I'm just kidding. I'll let her, she's a great speaker and author, so I'm sure she can talk about all the work she does. I'll just be short. So she's a sustainability climate scientist and also an author. And she's also, she has published extensively on peer-reviewed journal, but she also published on Fashion Magazine, Scientific Americans, all these other media outlets. So, so she's in pop science, but she's also a great scientist. Her research covers climate solution, climate education, which I really love, bringing climate science to K-12 and schools, and sustainable land and agriculture and food. Her family has deep ties to food in California. Let's talk about that. So she grew up in Sonoma, and she got her PhD from Stanford, and she studied wine. Actually, had a interesting study on wine in California, how climate has impacted that, right? And and her grandpa, she's the heiress of the founding father of a pioneering turkey processing enterprise in California. So she'll talk about that too. I highly encourage. The book is written in such a funny way that I don't see many scientists do that. It's very personable. Very, she's a good writer, she reads a lot, right? I looked at your reading list last year, I was like, oh, Kim, I cannot match you. Okay, so my first question is, you're a scientist. So what makes you want to write a book to the public? And second, in doing popular science, how do you balance facts and feeling?
Great questions. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and thank you to Eva and Vance for hosting. I wrote this book for my friends from college, of whom Vance is one. In 2017, we published a study that identified high-impact climate actions that individuals could take. And it got a lot of media attention, and this was actually the first time I had really talked with my friends about climate change in the way that we talked about our everyday lives. So with my closest friends, we would talk about, I had gotten divorced, one of my dear friends died of cancer. We went through big life events and we could talk about everything, but we weren't talking about climate change. So it kind of felt like the elephant in the room. And that 2017 moment was kind of a breakthrough for me in thinking and talking about climate change in a more humanistic and everyday way that people could relate to. So I started writing then, and it was a long process of writing, finding an agent, getting a publisher, and then, you know, it was about 4 years until the book came out of that. But I really wrote it to try and reach people who were concerned about the climate crisis and wanted to know what they could do.
Non-organic almonds uses a lot of pesticides, so just thoughts on that. Pesticides also contribute to a lot of climate change and health of animals and humans. So just wondering then, what do we do? And then organic almonds extremely expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have these systems that we really have to overhaul. Like when we talk about expense, I think it's really important to look at why things cost what they do and to realize that those are policy choices. It's not some handed down on stone tablets from above, right? We just published a study in Europe that for the first time traced where the largest source of European taxpayer money goes. So about 40% of the whole EU budget goes to the common agricultural policy there. And we mapped 16 million individual payments to say who's getting the money and for what for the first time. So that really shows basically the inefficiencies in the system. And for example, we found that about 40% of that money is misspent. It's actually increasing income inequality because it's paying the largest farmers who are already the wealthiest. It's not paying the smaller farmers and those that actually employ the most people. And that's against the point or the goal of that policy because it's meant to provide farmers a living wage. It's also paying polluters. So it's not going to the most climate friendly and biodiversity preserving forms of agriculture, but instead the opposite. So those are numbers I have to hand because we just published that study. But I think in the US with the Farm Bill, it's actually quite similar. So the reason that we have, you know, cheap food be cheap, cheap unhealthy food be cheap, and healthy food be expensive are as a result of policy choices. So we have to look at improving and reforming those policies to make the healthy and sustainable and nutritious food actually the most affordable.
I understand that. So we're talking about people not being educated on the true cost of food.
Yeah.
In my business, I talk to our customers. We're really heavy on education, and that's also because of government subsidies. We do not use soy and corn in our kitchen at all. We often have to talk with customers about why our prices is so high. And I completely understand that not everybody can afford our food because a muffin costs $5, while they can go to Safeway and, you know, less than a dollar they buy something that's double the size. So I just feel, you know, how do we make that type of policy change? Because it's not an overnight change. One of the things that my heart aches is thinking about all the privileges that we have in this room, right? But how do we change lives for people that outside of this room, or maybe even outside of Rose Garden, right? So where do we make that policy change? And that's something that's really heavy on my heart and that I think about almost every day when I'm running my business. And then the second thing is school food.
Yeah. I have a lot to talk about.
You know, so that's another thing because children are our future. They're one of our biggest assets. And
I wonder if like there's a disconnection between health, on the personal level, health and diet, because I think there's a great saying is that we are fed by our food, which pays no attention to the health industry, and we are healed by the health industry, which pays no attention to the food. So there's obviously a disconnection, and the kind of money on the preventive side, which include the dietary choices, you can save you so much on the whole medical system, curing your disease, because a lot of the disease have been scientifically proved are caused by diets, right? So that disconnection is something like really a system change thing that not one single one of us can change. right? It's a system thing, and also policymakers have to not acknowledge that. Yeah, it's so complicated.
I mean, so I write about and talk about the idea of shifting from a mindset of exploitation to one of regeneration. And the 3 principles to do that are to first center the health and well-being of people and nature as our primary goal. That's what we should be aiming to improve in our businesses and our civil engagement in our daily lives. That's the point, right? And the way we do that is by stopping problems at their source instead of treating their symptoms. So if we're talking about climate, it's leaving fossil fuels in the ground, not expecting or planning to clean up a mess after we make it, but preventing the mess. For health, it's promoting health from the beginning, and as you say, food is actually, an ill diet is the leading cause of morbidity and mortality in the world, because medicine has been so successful at treating communicable diseases. But now we have all these dietary, and a lot of that is from overconsumption. The 3rd principle then is to increase resilience, so to improve our capacity to deal with and thrive through change. And I think that the overconsumption links with your question about privilege. So I mean, I explicitly focus on the top global 10%, which is people in the world earning $38,000 a year or more. That doesn't sound like a lot in the Bay Area, but those of us in that group are the wealthiest on Earth, and we cause half of household climate pollution. So it's really important to lead by example and to use that privilege and power that we have, especially if the top 1%, which is over about $109,000 per year, that group causes 15% of global climate pollution. So we have what I call these 5 climate superpowers from a paper that we published about a year ago. So that's as a consumer, as a role model, investor, professional, and citizen. And that's what I write about, is how to take high impact climate action in those 5 areas. And not all of those roles are available to everyone, but so for example, I mean, you were talking about being behind, if you have the ability to make use of a free press, we should use it. If we have as citizens the right to vote and to demonstrate, it's really important to use those rights, because not everybody has those. So there's a lot that we can do in each of those 5 roles, and I think there's so much that people don't realize the power that we have, that it's like unused potential that can really go so far.
So how do we make school lunches better?
I mean, in Sweden, school lunch is provided for every kid, and to me that makes a lot of sense, both because my mom tells me that the worst part of being a parent was making school lunches. So I think parents would be probably quite happy, and it levels the playing field economically and institutionally. We know kids, I mean all of us, but kids included, need food and
we have free lunch in California, but as a mom of 44th grader, I pack lunch. I insist to pack lunch every day for both my kids, because the school lunch is unhealthy and not tasty, and it just felt like there's a huge waste in terms of matching the supply and demand, because they don't tally the number, and they don't. I mean, it would be much better to hire a chef just to cook on site, right? Why don't we do that in the local system? Because they're doing it in the industrial way, like centralized locations, sending to the different. But it's not. I know kids throw out their lunch all the time, because if they taste one bite, it's not yummy, they throw it away. But of course, there are a lot of people rely on their low-income families. They're relying on the free lunch. That's why we're doing this. But I think school lunch should also be a way to educate our kids to exemplify what is the yummy and healthy food that they should eat, right? So we're not doing very good job in that. Mayor, do you have any advice?
So before going on the city council, I was also a trustee of the Board of Education, right? And there is recognition that we have to do better, right? The problem is that when you're dealing with institutions that have certain ways of doing things and have to follow certain guidelines that come from the federal government, because that's the way you get the funding to be able to provide free lunches or what have you. Since the pandemic, every student who asks for a lunch regardless of anything. Everybody gets it, right? I think they're trying to change it. The problem is that when you have something that is so mired in certain ways of doing things and worried about liability all the time, it's very, very hard to turn that around, right? And so there is recognition. There are some school districts, and because there are so many school districts throughout, I mean, even in California, right? Here in Santa Clara County, we have 33, right? And they all have different boards, they have different regulations, they want to do things their own way. It's hard. You have so many, so much red tape in there. But there is recognition, and there is a movement to try to get to more healthy foods, because everyone knows what you just said.
Yeah.
And as you were talking about, we have the wonderful opportunity of having choice and options, right? A lot of the kids, they don't have that choice. Sometimes that's the only meal they have.
Yeah.
And so I think that, we are really trying to do something, but it's going to take a lot of movement.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. And hopefully you work with the social innovators and, to even within the system, can get some change, bring some changes to that. Anyway, any other questions? And then we'll close the session. Any other questions? All right, if not, we'll thank Kim and thank you so much. And,